Alright, what do we have this week? The Outer Worlds 2 numbers aren't looking so good. New World is going on maintenance mode. Capcom sales data not looking good. Halo comes to PlayStation? All that and more on Old Man Rages at the News for the 3rd of November 2025. Before we get into the news, if you like the content, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And we're kicking off this week with Nintendo and the Switch 2 ports for Elden Ring and Borderlands 4 being delayed due to performance issues. This isn't the first time Borderlands 4 was delayed for the Switch 2. In September, they also delayed the game yet again. Granted, it's probably a mix of Borderlands 4's poor performance and the Switch 2 having the hardware of a modern console, but just passed through a lobotomy. But I digress. The saving grace so far, well, not for Nintendo or their cohorts from the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, is that we found some common sense. Open up the balls, everyone. Common sense was found. Let's party! Yeehaw! Now, this goes without saying, but remember, people, I am not a lawyer, nor do I know much about the law. I mean, I know just barely enough to not get into legal troubles. Now, with that out of the way, Japan's patent office has rejected a Nintendo application related to the Palworld lawsuit, citing a lack of originality. Oh boy. This, as the article puts it, raises questions about the other Nintendo patents describing the creature capture systems. Now, on a side note, I was expecting this to happen from the US Patent Office. Lucky me, I'm not a betting man. Now, the rejection happened in late October, where the Patent Office rejected Nintendo's patent application that is related to the family of creature capture patents. A JPO patent examiner found that the patent in question lacked originality and cited prior use, like Monster Hunter 4, Ark Survival Evolved, Hentai Collect, Pocket Pairs Craftopia, and the best of all, Pokemon Go. Yes, a patent examiner used Pokemon's own game against them. Talk about poetic justice. Nintendo has 60 days to respond to this rejection notice, but since the application isn't cited in the Palworld lawsuit, it won't help them that much. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I am not a lawyer. According to Game Freak's analyst Florian Muller, the newly rejected application is called Key Building Block in Nintendo's strategy to capture a wide range of creature capture system implementations. Meaning, this could possibly prevent them from actually having a monopoly on any summoning systems. Now, if you want to know why having a monopoly on a game mechanic is bad, just have a look at Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and its subsequent sequel, Shadow of War, where the Nemesis system is patented specifically for those games. And nobody can use that gem of a system. Now, if you want the opinion of an actual lawyer, Legal Mindset has a great video going over what it means from a legal perspective. Check it out. Video is in the sources. Moving on. Did you know that Outer Worlds 2 is doing worse than Avowed? Well, now you know. Now, if you're curious, the current amount of players on Steam is 12.7k with just under 17k all-time peak. And it still hasn't managed to beat Avowed's 19k player peak. Remember, we gave this over a week to see how the player numbers go. Mind you, this also includes the weekend, since this is recorded on a Sunday. And yeah, it's not looking good for Obsidian, that's for sure. They couldn't even beat the original's release. Mind you, the original was an Epic exclusive for a whole year. Sure, the game can make fun of people with the flaw they add to you if you buy the premium edition, but that doesn't seem to have saved it from failure. And don't get me started on critics and their opinions for the game. It's generally favorable on Metacritic, while games like Ark Raiders haven't gotten a rating yet. While, on top of that, it has a much higher player count. There are other games that also have a much higher player count than The Outer Worlds 2 and have zero rating at all. So yeah, I mean, let's be real here. Not only that our creators has more players, even on their own website, you can see people had generally more good things to say about it rather than, well, the other worlds too. But then again, the bar's not exactly that high, you know. Now, yeah, I get it. It can get overwhelming to review many games, but, well, Marvel Rivals is still stuck at 23 critic reviews. And going back to my previous point, I can keep listing games that are in the same situation as our creators, but it's gonna be a waste of time. In other news, looks like Amazon is finally ditching New World, and as this redditor pointed out, they might be cooked. And to confirm before moving on, I can't for the life of me find their studio LinkedIn page, no matter how hard I looked. If anybody has any leads on that LinkedIn page, give me a shout out in the comments. Anyways, last week they announced that New World is no longer sustainable, or to put it in simple terms, no new content will be made for the game. They did at least say they will provide a 6 months notice before making changes to players' ability to play the game, and they will keep the servers running throughout 2026. But this still doesn't look good for them because the document was leaked a while back showing that Amazon hopes to replace US workers with robots. So yeah, not looking good at all. This is further on display by the simple fact the Lord of the Rings MMO is also gone. Sure, the Verge article talked about future jobs, not current jobs. However, we say that they're not gonna try to automate the current jobs that they have. I mean, it's Amazon at the end of the day. And you all have heard stories about Amazon, am I right? And the only thing I really found amusing out of all of that shit show is that Amazon Games was trying to compete with Steam itself. Yeah. Alright, sure. Let's be real here. They were trying to compete since February. However, people just now realize that it's an actual thing. I can't believe it. Gabe always wins with one simple trick. By doing nothing. And the madman keeps getting away with it. Brother. Anyways. Moving on. Remedy is back at it again, and this time they are disappointed with the quarterly results. Gee, maybe next time they won't invest in DEI initiatives. Maybe then their profits will go up? I don't know, I'm just shooting in the dark here. Anyways. Looking further into it, the company reported a quarterly revenue of 12.15 million euros, which is 32% lower than the previous year. They also reported that almost half of the revenue was generated from game sales, which is a 620% increase since last year. The remaining money came from the development fees for Control 2, and the remake for Max Payne. Remedy also claims that the losses were due to the unsuccessful release of FBC Firebreak. Shocking, I know. And now they reiterated their decision to write off most of the capitalized development and publishing costs of the game, which amounted to 14.9 million euros. Some of the freed resources will be directed to other projects. They have not specified which projects will get said resources. And while we're on topic of sales, Capcom also released their data, and it doesn't look good for the Monster Hunter franchise, because they haven't gotten many sales since they hit the 10 million copies sold milestone. The sales data is from July 2025 and ends at September 2025. And while it sold almost 11 million copies in total, however, they only sold 637,000 units during that period. Sure, that is a lot, but the DMC HD collection sold 754,000 units, and that is a much older set of games. Hell, we're talking ancient levels of old since the collection just adds HD to the first 3 Devil May Cry games. And yes, that includes this gem of a scene.
Where should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not surprised that Devil May Cry 5 managed to outsell the newest Monster Hunter game, frankly, because it's a very good game about the adventures of Virgil hiring Virgil's brother and Virgil's son to defeat Virgil, so Virgil can become Virgil. All that whilst featuring Virgil. Makes perfect sense. Why am I hearing a storm off in the distance?
You shall die!
Anyways, moving on, Marathon is clearing their image. Or at least trying to, because there were leaks of the game that got sniped by Bungie. They were most likely using aim assist. Now for some context before we get into this situation. At the start of October, they revealed the new closed technical test, and some people praised the game and others hated stuff like limited stash space, the poor audio, and the continued existence of bullet magnetism, or aim assist for the people who prefer the original name. Naturally, because Bungie doesn't want people to have freedom of speech, they NDA'd all the paste bins talking about the closed test. Yes, I get that's within their right. I mean, it's a closed test for a reason. But it's not looking good for them if people are still complaining about bullet magnetism in a competitive shooter. I mean, have you seen anybody using aim bots in competitive matches and getting away with it? Yeah, me neither. Moving on, apparently Ghost of Yotei outsold Assassin's Creed Shadows. Not that high of a bar, to be honest, and now that I think about it, why didn't they compare it to the prequel? Alright, because it will make the game look good. Another interesting thing before we move on to the article is that they are only looking at PS5 sales, and they admitted it by saying, and I quote, "But its Shadows took 7 months to sell 2.4 million on PlayStation 5. Yeah, we love screwing the numbers here instead of saying how it is. Mind you know what? I'm actually not gonna get into it. This ain't my first language, and I can see typos in the article, so yeah. I mean, starting with the article, they take a step back just to glaze a bit of Ubislop in order to be on their good graces. Well, to remind people that Shadows also sold over 4.3 million copies per their estimate. Again, we don't have an official number from Ubisoft, so it's, yeah, numbers taken with a grain of salt. Cool. We'd like that you admit to glazing everyone, but then you put this graph and like the holy grail, and you're like, look, we are correct. It's a bit annoying at this point. Now, don't get me started on people who claim the game is doing great. Yeah, if it was doing great as it seems, then why is it already on a discount for Amazon UK? 2 weeks after the release of the damn thing. Oh boy, the poor Brits are cursed yet again. They lopped off £10 for the game, just the stock sold faster? Or at least that's my guess. But journalists can't say how it is, and instead they'll try to spin the narrative that it's an insane deal by looking at the reviews for it. Brother, if it sold well, why is there a discount on it? Last time I checked, it ain't Black Friday or Cyber Monday to waive the discounts left, right, and center. But anyways, I digress. And in other news, we have a wild one on our hands. The Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director recommends players skip the original and play Rebirth instead because of first impressions. Rebirth wouldn't have existed without the original. Wild to say something like that. Now, let's be fair and look at the full quote. He was asked if he would recommend newcomers try out the original before moving to the remake, or the opposite, to which he responded with, and I quote, "In a lot of ways, that's a difficult question to answer. A lot of people say to me that if they could go back and play the original Final Fantasy VII with no knowledge of the story and enjoy it for the first time, there'd be nothing better than that. The remake is designed to be enjoyed by people who have played the original and know it well, and also by complete newcomers who know nothing about it. So, either way is fine. You enjoy the game and have a similar experience whether you played the original or not. If you have the opportunity, I'd like you to play the remake first and enjoy it as a fresh experience on its own. There are definitely nods in there, so if you've played the original before, you can see how we've reworked things, and that's a completely legitimate way of playing. But if you've not played it before, I'd kind of like you to experience the remake first with the new graphics and presentation, and have that be your first impression of the game. Alright, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Honestly, after reading that quote, it's not as bad as it originally seemed. Still, rubs me the wrong way, cause, well, rewind the tape a bit to hear what I said about the remake not existing if the original wasn't made in the first place. About, 40 seconds ago? I don't know. Well, not to mention, if you go further into the article, you see that he didn't elaborate further, leaving us in the dark on why he believes the remake is better than the original. So, yeah. My 2 cents? They can't exactly monetize the original as well as the remake. At least that's how I see things. But let me know what you think in the comments. And since, this is the internet, it went wild. As everything on the internet does. With comments like these just ripping him a new one. And look, if I can be honest with you, play the original first if you want to play Final Fantasy VII. And lastly, this is wild. Microsoft announced that Halo Campaign Evolved will come to PlayStation. It blew up so much that the White House released an AI image of Donald Trump as Master Chief saluting in front of an American flag that had a glaring mistake in it. And because this is the internet, as we've discovered in the last story, it lost its shit. Now for some context, because this will be needed. Alright, here we go!
You got your baited. You got your baited. You got your baited.
But no, seriously. Microsoft announced that Halo Campaign Evolved is no longer exclusive, and made a joke about the console wars ending. After that, the White House released an image of Donald Trump in the Master Chief's suit that's clearly AI generated, since I don't believe anybody with a functioning brain cell would make such an obvious mistake. That being the American flag only containing 40 stars instead of the 50 that it should have at the moment. And for my fellow Europeans who don't really care about what the flag looks, the reason why it's a big deal for the people over the puddle that we call the Atlantic is because each star on the flag represents one of the 50 states. Hell, it got so bad that GameStop even joined in on the joke. Now, I get that people can get annoyed at that, but the last time we Europeans saw a little bit too much, let's call it nationalism, well, it didn't end well. I mean, just open up a history book and check what happened between the 1st of September 1939 to the 2nd of September 1945. Or just Google the dates. You'll get all the context needed. Now, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because IGN, in all its brilliance, could not sit down and enjoy the chaos around this shit show, and instead tried their best to dig deeper. They asked, and I quote, "Is Trump claiming a key role in ending the console wars? Is the White House making a play for the gamer crowd here?" And it makes me think that they're going down a schizo lane like other people. The American government also doubled down on the whole situation using another AI-generated Halo image, but this time it's from the Department of Homeland Security, and they expect Microsoft to say something about it. Yeah, can I speak on Microsoft's behalf for a bit? That AI-generated shit needs to go, guys. And no, you did not help in ending the console wars. I mean, the console wars weren't even a thing, really. It was just a bunch of fanboys trying to justify their financial investment into something. But anyways, I digress. And on that insane note, That's all for this week. If you like the content, hit the like and subscribe buttons, share the video, and I'll see you next time.